The Trinitarios is a highly organized New York-based Dominican gang. We can trace their origins back to the early 90s, when two Dominican men, Leonidas Sierra and Julio Marin, found themselves locked up on separate murder charges in Rikers Island. Harassed by other gangs, they formed the Trinitarios for protection in 1992. Inspired by the three revolutionaries of the Dominican Republic, they named their group Trinitarios, which loosely translates to the Trinity. The Trinitarios adopted their country's motto, Dios, Patria y Libertad, meaning God, homeland, and liberty. They also established their gang colors, which were red, white, and blue, for the Dominican Republic's flag, and lime green color.
The center of the flag got green. It means like earth. That's why we represent green. If you're wearing green, you want the mind.
They always carrying a green bandana, or a green scarf, or a green hat. Anything that they wear green, it shows that they are Trinis.
Their weapon of choice is a machete, a symbol of their agrarian roots.
Trinitarios know how to work with machetes and fight with them. They will just cut your hand and that's it.
You kill somebody with a gun, you ain't nothing. But if you kill somebody with a knife, I mean, you're real.
On the streets of New York, the Trinitarios first emerged in the Marcy houses of Brooklyn, and over time they spread to Upper Manhattan, the Bronx, Queens, and Long Island. The Trinitarios have also spread to states like Rhode Island, Florida, and Tennessee. The gang's reach even extends overseas to places like Spain. As the gang grew, so did its complex set of rules. No new faction or set could form without being sanctioned, and members have to follow a strict chain of command, and the gang's bylaws are strictly enforced. On the streets, there are three main levels of leadership: first, second, and third in command. Three members also serve as heads of security, and those members are tasked with securing the gang's weapons and maintaining relationships with other gangs. At the top, a central committee governs the chapters, and one person is specifically assigned to handle conflicts and lead the gang in times of war. For the soldiers or the rank-and-file members, life in the gang is about carrying out orders, often violent ones, which are issued by the leadership. Death is considered a probable outcome for these soldiers. Discipline within the gang is harsh. Those who break the rules are dealt with by the heads of discipline, who are in charge of punishing members, either through fines or physical beatings. Detective Paul Jesselson noted that no other gang he had investigated operated with such a high level of organization. To become a member, you need a sponsor. New recruits are handed a rule book and are sworn in through an oath to abide by the gang's constitution. Membership isn't free, though. Each member is required to pay weekly dues, which fund everything from bail and weapons to drugs, parties, and even everyday necessities like diapers for their kids. These funds are raised during mandatory weekly chapter meetings. The meetings end with a Trinitarios prayer, where members stand in a circle with their heads bowed, arms crossed, and holding hands. The Trinitarios provide protection to their members inside prisons and fund their operations through drug dealing and trafficking, both on the streets and behind bars. They are considered ruthless, even by the standards of rival gangs like the Bloods, Crips, and Latin Kings. Disobedience and disrespect are swiftly and severely punished. When a member steps out of line, leaders issue green lights, which are orders to attack. Additionally, when an outsider disrespects a member, the punishment typically involves a group of armed Trinitarios hunting down and swarming their victim and attacking them with machetes and knives. Examples of these punishments involve an incident in 2005, when Trinitarios member Juan K.J. Martinez and 16-year-old Kayshawn Phillips got into a fistfight at a pickup basketball game in Yonkers. Juan retaliated by assaulting Kayshawn with a machete, and with help from other Trinitarios who were armed with guns, knives, and swords, Kayshawn was stabbed 20 times and shot in the head with a 9mm. He unfortunately did not survive. Additionally, in 2010, Mohamed Jallo and his cousin, Amadou Diallo, found themselves being chased down the street by a group of Trinitarios. Mohamed then turned to his cousin and said, "Let's stop and fight." Mohamed and Amadou, both just 18 years old, were surrounded by at least 9 Trinitarios, and both sides exchanged blows. Amadou was hit with a bottle and Mohamed was stabbed to death beneath his heart with a machete. Richard Gonzalez joined the Trinitarios when he was serving time in prison in 2003. Over time, he rose through the ranks and eventually became one of the top leaders of the Trinitarios in both the Bronx and Manhattan. But his rise to power was cut short in 2010 when he was arrested in a federal raid. 3 years after his arrest, Richard agreed to testify against his fellow gang members in a Manhattan federal court, offering a rare and valuable insider's look at how the Trinitarios operated from within. His testimony would help convict 5 members, sending them to prison for a very long time. According to him, when you join the Trinitarios, if you owe any debts, the gang takes care of them for you. If you have conflicts, whether with outsiders or even within the gang, those problems are resolved, sometimes through negotiation, but often through violence. Richard emphasized how the gang structure made its members feel like they were part of a family, saying these are the people that look out for you, that take care of you when you go to prison. In 2009, federal authorities believed they had successfully crippled the Trinitarios, arresting over 140 members, including top leaders like founder Leonidas Sierra and several of his lieutenants. However, the violence within the Trinitarios gang kept reaching new heights. This was due to the fact that the takedowns created a power vacuum. After the successful arrest and convictions of the gang leaders, the remaining members were younger, more reckless, and had a hunger for power. They were left to fight for control, which caused the rise in violence. In 2011, divisions started to spread through the Trinitarios. A leader from the Sunset Park said in the Brooklyn chapter attempted to expand to the Bronx without first getting permission from the higher-ups. This was seen as a direct challenge to the Trinitarios' established rules. This was more serious than a territorial dispute. It was a breach of the gang's strict code of conduct. As a result, a rivalry ensued between Sunset Park and a Bronx set known as Los Suarez. This escalating conflict sparked a wave of violent attacks and retaliations. During this time, various Bronx factions sided with Los Suarez in the ongoing fight, including the Bad Boys, who were also based in the Bronx. Richard Gonzalez, incensed by this violation of gang rules, decided to take action, and he greenlighted a beating of the Sunset Park leader. The gang war intensified in 2018. Between June 5th and June 19th of the same year, there were at least 2 shootings and 8 stabbings which were linked to this war. Among the victims was a 14-year-old boy who was brutally assaulted on June 17th by a group of Los Suarez members on the Bronx River Parkway. In late May or early June, Diego Suero, a leader of the Trinitarios gang's Los Suarez set, issued a green light on Sunset Park. This green light gave gang members the go-ahead to attack Sunset Park rivals on sight. Los Suarez and Bad Boys took orders from their leader, Diego Suero, who was referred to by members as Santa Claus, or Psycho. On the night of June 20th, 2018, Diego, along with his second-in-command, Frederick then, gathered Trinitarios members at Diego's apartment on Boston Road. They were smoking hookah and playing music. At around 10:30 p.m., Frederick told the men they were headed to the Little Italy section of the Bronx to search for their rivals. The order came from Diego, who said, "Go after sunset. You already know what you have to do." This order was given because a Sunset Park member had recently shot a member of the Bad Boys in the face, and just the night before, on June 19th, a massive fight between the sets had broken out. Diego's orders were clear. Carry a weapon, and if you encounter a member of Sunset Park, do whatever possible to hurt them. Diego had made it clear that no one was to let their guard down, and revenge was necessary. The Suarez and Bad Boys gang members then set out in 4 cars to East 183rd Street in Adams Place, an area where Sunset Park members were known to hang out. The gang also received information that one of their rivals had been spotted there. Among those in the cars were Trinitario members Kevin Alvarez, Luis Cabrera Santos, Dano Fernandez, Elvin Garcia, Antonio Rodriguez Hernandez Santiago, Janaiki Martinez Estrella, Jose Muniz, Danilo Payamps Pacheco, Gabriel Ramirez Concepcion, Manuel Rivera, Jose Tavares, Frederick then, Ronald Urenia, and Michael Sosa Reyes. Lesandro Guzman-Feliz, also known as Junior, was born on November 11, 2002, and in 2018 he was a sophomore at the Dr. Richard Izquierdo Health and Science Charter School. He lived in a 2-bedroom apartment in the Belmont neighborhood with his mother, Leandra Feliz, and his older sister, Genesis. Junior, like many teenagers in the neighborhood, was surrounded by gangs that heavily recruited in local schools. Despite the pressure around him, Junior had dreams of becoming a police detective one day, and he was even a member of the police department's Explorers program, which provides young men and women aged 14 to 20 an opportunity to explore a career in law enforcement. Junior's mother shared that since he was 5 years old, he used to love to play with the police toy cars, and always said he wanted to be a detective. He had friends who were involved with both the Crips and the Trinitarios, but he never officially joined any gang himself. The police would later confirm that there was no evidence that Junior was a member of any gang. His mother had always warned him about the dangers of associating with gang members. She told him to avoid talking to gang members because he could be mistaken for one of them. "That was my deep worry and fear," she said. On the evening of June 20th, 2018, 15-year-old Junior was playing Nintendo in his bedroom before he told his mother that he was going downstairs to lend $5 to a friend. He left his home on Bathgate Avenue and 184th Street around 10 p.m. to meet his friend just a couple of blocks away. Junior didn't return home right away, and his mother called him and told him that he was taking too long and that he should come back home. By 11:32 p.m., Junior was walking toward Adams Place, a popular hangout spot for local teenagers. He had been spending his nights on that street for several months, socializing with friends and chatting with girls. Meanwhile, the 4 cars containing the Trinitarios members, who had covered their faces, were cruising the streets. Witnesses later reported that the men in the cars were taunting passers-by. One by one, the cars turned onto Adams Place, and that's when the Trinitarios spotted Junior, who was near D. Aurea Murphy Triangle. Junior was walking down the street, looking at his phone. The gang members shouted a call that only Trinitarios members would understand. "Po-po." The shout had caught Junior's attention, and when he looked up from his phone, several of the men got out of the cars and surrounded him. Diego Suero created a test to determine if someone was a member of a rival group. The test involved a cryptic number, 1090, which would be asked as a question. Only those who were allies would know how to respond. One of the men asked Junior 1090. If Junior had been from one of the other Trinitarios sets, he would have known to say which gang he belonged to after getting asked that question. But Junior, who was terrified and confused, didn't know the answer. Junior then told them that he wasn't a Sunset Park member. According to the Trinitarios, Junior's willingness to walk through a neighborhood considered enemy territory, and his response to the 1090 question gave off the impression that he was a rival gang member. The men kept pressing him with questions, but when they didn't get the responses they were expecting, one of the gang members made a gesture as though he was going to strike Junior. In that moment, Junior turned and ran, and the Trinitarios then started chasing him. Junior ran so fast that he literally slipped out of his slippers. Kevin Alvarez drove one of the 4 vehicles used to chase Junior, and as Junior tried to run into St. Barnabas Hospital, which was nearby, Kevin blocked Junior's path, forcing him to run to a nearby bodega, the Cruz and Chiqui Grocery, located on East 183rd Street and Bathgate Avenue. Modesto Cruz was the owner of the bodega, and he was behind the register when a terrified Junior rushed into the store and tried to hide behind the counter. Jose Tavares then entered the store just 4 seconds after Junior, and he had seen the terrified teen trying to hide behind the counter. He then signaled for more gang members to come inside. Daniel Fernandez, Kevin Alvarez, and Michael Sosa Reyes then follow him in the bodega. While Junior was hiding behind the counter, he was desperately pleading that he wasn't the person they were looking for. "I didn't do none of that," he said. Frederick then, known as Kalita, gave the order to pull Junior out of the bodega and was watching everything unfold from a short distance away. There are inconsistencies regarding what happened before Junior was beaten and dragged from behind the counter. Kevin claims that he, Michael, and another gang member went inside and explained to the owner and workers that Junior was a member of a rival gang who had shot one of their own, which was why they were there to target him. Due to this, the store owner told them to take the fight outside. Then, he unlocked the door behind the counter where Junior had been hiding. Another version of what happened is that Michael claimed that they falsely told the store owner that Junior had attacked his grandmother and demanded that he be handed over. Lastly, the owner claimed he tried to protect Junior by allowing him to climb over the counter. However, the gang threatened him, forcing him to give up the teen. However, security footage from the bodega shows Modesto pushing Junior and trying to prevent him from jumping over the counter. What happened next, however, is undisputed. Michael then leaves the shop, and Kevin and Danelle drag Junior out from the back of the store. As they were dragging him out of the bodega, Kevin punched and kicked Junior as he tried to defend himself, grabbing onto anything he could, chips racks, doors, even the fridge, in a desperate attempt to stop them from dragging him outside. Kevin testified saying, quote, "The kid was pushing the door. He was putting his shoulder against it. He's saying stop. He didn't have nothing to do with what we were saying," unquote. Once Kevin and Danelle managed to pull him out onto the street, Jose Munez rushed toward Junior with a machete in hand, followed by Elvin Garcia, who carried a large knife. Manuel Rivera, Janaiki Martinez Estrella, and Antonio Rodriguez Hernandez Santiago eventually joined in, and they were also armed with large knives. They proceeded to stab Junior repeatedly. Janaiki eventually stabbed Junior in the neck with his knife. Junior, terrified, screamed for help, shouting for the men to stop as he tried to block the blows of machetes and knives. As the brutal attack unfolded outside the bodega, workers inside called the police for help. After the 20-second attack, Janaiki is seen pushing a critically wounded Junior towards the bodega door. Junior managed to stumble back inside the bodega, blood pouring from a deep gash in his neck. But instead of helping him, Modesto can be seen in the footage motioning for Junior to leave, pointing toward St. Barnabas Hospital just a block away. In his last desperate attempt to survive, Junior ran in that direction, but he collapsed from blood loss on the pavement before he could even reach the entrance. According to the New York City Fire Department's timeline, at 11:40 p.m., medics were called to the bodega where Junior was attacked. 10 minutes later, they notified their dispatcher that they looked but couldn't find a patient. By then, Junior had already taken off toward the hospital, about a block and a half away. At 12:25 a.m., outside 4422 3rd Avenue, a different ambulance was flagged down for a stabbing victim. Those medics found Junior and rushed him to the hospital. However, it was already too late, as Junior had passed away only minutes after the attack, which occurred at around 11:38 p.m., according to CCTV. Rushing to see him, his mother screamed at the hospital staff, "Is he alive? Is he alive?" The mom knew the hospital well, as she worked in the intensive care unit as a housekeeper at that time. But her son never made it to the unit. By the time she saw him, he was already dead. Chief of Department Terrence Monahan said that, quote, "The stabbing murder of this young man is among the most brutal crimes I've seen in my 36-year career." Junior was left with severe bruising, scratches, cuts, scrapes, and small puncture wounds all over his body. However, the injuries sustained by Junior were all classified as superficial, referring to damage limited to the skin's top layer. Janaiki delivered the fatal blow. He plunged the knife into Junior's neck, which cut through 4.5 inches of flesh and severed his jugular vein, leading to massive blood loss. Frederick, who watched the attack from a short distance away, later called Diego Suero to report that his orders had been carried out. Additionally, Diego received a message from one of his soldiers stating, "You are the one that gave the light for the kid." He responded, "Yes, for all of Sunset." After the gang members killed Junior, they returned to Diego Suero's apartment where they hid the weapons and even attempted to provide first aid to Elvin, who had cut his hand during the brutal assault. Additionally, the leaders passed around cell phone pictures of rival members and asked the soldiers to identify the person they stabbed. Junior was not in any of those photos. The night before his death, Junior had a close call. Trinitarios who were riding around in several cars encircling Adams Place had targeted a 15-year-old Sunset Park member, whom Junior knew. As the gang members closed in, the boy was fleeing and begging Junior for help, but Junior froze, unsure of what to do. The gang members paused for a moment and stared Junior down. Then, they turned their attention back to the boy they were chasing, quickly catching up to him. They surrounded him and began to beat him with knives, leaving him bloodied and bruised. The boy managed to run off, but Junior was left shaken by what he had just witnessed. Later, Junior confided in a friend of his, telling him that the Trinitarios seemed to think that he was a gang member, and that he was scared that he was somehow now implicated in the gang violence. He saw that something was going to happen to him, his friend said. The Bronx, and specifically the 48th precinct where Junior was killed, has long been plagued by gang violence. The area had seen a sharp increase in homicides that year. As of that time, the precinct had already reported 9 killings, more than double the number for the same period in 2017. Tragically, Junior was one of 8 victims under the age of 17 killed in the city that year, a rise from just 3 in the same time frame the year before. Lesandro Junior's mother was devastated. She said, "I feel destroyed. They took away my life. He liked to play PlayStation. He liked pizza. He liked Dave and Buster's. He has never been in any fight, never in 15 years. He was innocent. He never grew up on the streets. He was with me all the time." The brutal crime shocked the Bronx, and Junior's mother said that all the kids from the block are scared to come out on the street. Junior's brother-in-law Derek Grolon said he received several Facebook messages from men who claimed to be members of the Trinitarios. The gang members admitted they killed Junior by mistake and apologized. One of the messages said, "I'm sorry, I know it doesn't mean a lot. It wasn't supposed to be him." Junior's sister received similar messages. Additionally, in a 2-minute Snapchat recording, a gang member confirmed that those responsible had been kicked out of the Trinitarios. Detectives worked tirelessly trying to solve this heinous murder, chasing down every lead and gathering information. This attack was captured on multiple surveillance cameras and cell phones. In one video, which was taken from a window several stories above, bystanders can be heard screaming, "Oh shit," and "Stop." Another graphic video posted to Facebook shows Junior covered in blood from head to toe. With his eyes wide open, he sits on the sidewalk near St. Barnabas Hospital as people around him scream. A woman says, "No, no," as she appears to apply pressure to his neck. During the chaotic scene, another person calls out, "Oh my gosh, my little brother." People can be heard telling Junior to keep his eyes open and to keep talking. 2 NYPD officers wearing rubber gloves can be seen standing off to the side as several people rush to help Junior. "Yo, what are y'all doing about this?" one person shouts. As Junior slumped against a building, covered in blood, people crowded around, trying to keep him alert. "Junior, you're good. You're good. Just keep talking. Just stay with us," someone on the video says. By the end of the nearly 1-minute clip, the officers moved closer to Junior, but they still hadn't made contact with him. Police officials stated that they did nothing wrong. As the videos began to surface online, they quickly spread across social media. The content of the footage of the brutal murder led to extreme outrage from the community. Police posts about the murder on platforms like Twitter and Instagram were shared more than 100,000 times, and the hashtag Justice for Junior began trending. The public's response to the brutal murder was overwhelming. The police department's tip hotline was flooded with calls. So many, in fact, supervisors had to bring in extra staff to answer the phones. People were identifying the attackers, naming suspects, giving their addresses, photos, gang affiliations, and even where they hung out. These tips eventually helped the police with the arrests and convictions of the assailants. We will talk about the arrests and convictions in detail later on in the video. Modesto Cruz had owned the bodega for almost 2 decades at that time, and he stated that he knew Junior ever since he was a child. Many felt that Modesto didn't do enough to protect Junior in his final moments. Soon, the bodega was boycotted, and the pressure grew so intense that Modesto was forced to close the store temporarily. In an interview days after the murder, Modesto tearfully insisted that he had tried to help Junior. Modesto recounted that he was closing his store when Junior ran inside and tried to jump over the counter. Initially, Modesto thought it was a robbery until Junior started yelling that they were looking for him. Recognizing the teen and seeing how scared he was, Modesto tried to help. However, the attackers quickly spotted Junior behind the counter and dragged him outside. Modesto remembered how terrified Junior looked, stating he was so scared. "I remember his face, and he was so scared." Modesto said he called 911 twice and made it clear that an ambulance was needed at the bodega right away. Modesto clarified that he wasn't trying to kick Junior out. He said that when he was pointing at the door, he was telling Junior to go to the hospital, which was only a few blocks away, because the ambulance was taking too long. NYPD Commissioner James O'Neill commented on the incident, saying, "I saw the entire videotape. I'm sure at some point they were frightened also. They didn't know what was going on." In August 2018, the bodega was sold to new owners. The new owners planned to reopen the store, but their decision sparked outrage within the community. Junior's family, along with other local residents, expressed how they wanted the space to be transformed into something meaningful, perhaps a youth center or a church. One neighbor commented that a new bodega would force them to relive the same nightmare. In a move to appease the family, the new bodega owners offered to rename the store after Junior, but his mother rejected the idea. The community would gather near the bodega to honor Junior. Hundreds of candles lined the ground, and dozens of neighbors showed up, lighting candles, offering their condolences, and writing heartfelt messages on pieces of cardboard hung on the store's brick wall. The school community was shaken by Junior's death, and school officials described him as a kind, sweet, respectful young man, always smiling, who had so much potential. In an effort to support his family, the school covered the cost of his funeral. Meanwhile, a GoFundMe campaign set up by his sister-in-law, Ione Gutierrez, raised more than $200,000. Junior's funeral was attended by over 1,000 mourners. Lesandro Junior Guzman-Feliz was buried at St. Raymond's Cemetery following funeral services. Members of the family wore Yankees jerseys for the ceremony, as they were Junior's favorite baseball team. Junior was also honored by an NYPD scholarship in his name. Mayor Bill de Blasio said Junior's life was taken too soon, but it will not be in vain. Police Commissioner James O'Neill said that there is no better way to honor a young man whose stated dream was to become one of the greatest detectives in the world than by establishing a memorial scholarship in his honor. Additionally, the intersection of East 183rd Street and Bathgate Avenue was renamed to Lesandro Junior Guzman-Feliz Way in Junior's honor. 14 people, all believed to be members of the Trinitarios gang, were eventually arrested and charged in connection with the brutal murder of Junior. Kevin Alvarez was the first to be arrested on June 24, 2018. He had driven the group, blocked in Junior with his car, and beaten and dragged Junior out of the store. On the same day, police raided a house in Patterson, known as a gang hangout, and took Daniel Fernandez, Jonaiki Martinez Estrella, Jose Munez, Jose Tavares, Manuel Rivera, and Antonio Rodriguez Hernandez Santiago into custody. Manuel, Antonio, and Jonaiki were all part of the group that attacked Junior with knives, and Jose Munez used a machete to attack him. It was Jonaiki who ultimately inflicted the fatal wound to Junior's neck. Daniel Fernandez dragged Junior out onto the street, which allowed the rest of the members to attack him with the knives and the machete. Jose Tavares was implicated in cornering Junior into the bodega and signaling for other members to come inside the bodega after spotting Junior behind the counter. Elvin Garcia was one of the 5 suspected Trinitarios gang members who hacked Junior, and on June 26, 2018, he was arrested in the Bronx. On July 3, 2018, both Gabriel Ramirez Concepcion and Diego Suero were arrested. Gabriel was accused of driving people to the crime scene, cornering Junior into the bodega, and leaving the scene after the stabbing. Diego was the leader who approved the murder. On July 6, 2018, Danilo Payamps Pacheco turned himself in at the 48th Precinct in the Bronx and was among those who chased Junior into the bodega, and he pointed to the other gang members to where Junior was running. On July 9, 2018, Luis Cabrera Santos was apprehended by Connecticut State Police on a homicide warrant from New York State. He was stopped on Interstate 84 in Southbury, Connecticut, and taken into custody. Luis was one of the drivers who brought gang members to the scene and acted as the getaway driver. Interestingly, when he was being arrested, he was driving the same gray Honda that was part of the convoy that chased Junior. On August 26, 2018, Ronald Ureña was arrested for cornering Junior into the bodega. Lastly, Frederick then, Diego Suero's second in command, turned himself in on September 16, 2018. Michael Sosa Reyes became a cooperating witness and was not charged for his roles in the crime. Additionally, Kevin Alvarez gave testimony against his fellow gang members in exchange for a more lenient sentence. While awaiting trial, Daniel Jose Munez and Antonio got removed from general population and isolated from other inmates for their own safety. They were moved to a special 50-cell wing at the George R. Vierno Center on Rikers Island due to receiving death threats. Law enforcement sources reported that everybody wants a piece of them, including other Trinitarios gang members. The 3 men were placed under around-the-clock security, making it impossible for anyone to get near them. Each of the 3 men had their own cell, leaving 47 cells in the unit unoccupied. Manuel was even slashed in the face by Tyreek Johnson, a reported member of the Blood Street gang, inside a Rikers Island housing unit. This incident was captured on surveillance video. The other defendants were in different jails, and whenever one of them is moved, all other inmate transfers are put on hold, and they are escorted by multiple correction officers and a captain who would film the transfer. The correction department has attempted to move all defendants to jurisdictions outside the city for their protection, but only Elvin and Kevin were accepted by Suffolk County officials. They were eventually moved to Riverhead Correctional Facility on Long Island. Authorities reported that members of the Trinitarios threatened prosecutors and Kevin Alvarez during the murder trial. Assistant District Attorney Morgan Dolan recounted being confronted by a young Dominican man on her way to the courthouse before her security detail intervened. As the trial unfolded, defense lawyers for 4 of the defendants who were involved in the stabbing outside the bodega argued that their clients did not intend to kill Junior, and they tried solely blaming Janaiki for the murder. They claimed that the gang leader Diego had only ordered them to injure a member of a rival gang, not to kill anyone. They also suggested that the gang members were only pretending to stab Junior because the gang leaders were watching the assault, and they feared punishment if they didn't participate. However, the prosecution rejected this argument. Lead prosecutor Morgan Dolan reminded the court that weapons like knives and machetes kill, and the attackers knew this when they approached Junior. During the trial, Jose Muñoz became aggressive, shouted at the trial that he was a Trinitario until death, and said that he felt no remorse for Junior's death. He even claimed that his conscience was clear because he didn't kill Junior, despite his participation in the attack. The only apology he gave was to the Dominican community and his family for staining their reputations. He also yelled in Spanish that he wasn't getting a fair trial. Court officers had to restrain and remove him. Justice Neary, who oversaw the trial, called him a disgrace to his family and stated that he should be a poster boy for any young man contemplating joining a gang. Udelvi Mina, then a 21-year-old third-year medical student, testified about how her then-boyfriend, Elvin Garcia, had pointed himself out to her in viral videos of the killing and showed no remorse for his actions. Junior's mother, Leandra, said the following in the courtroom. That night there were 2 deaths, Junior and I, who was left dead inside. Kevin Alvarez, age 19, who cooperated and ended up testifying against his fellow Trinitarios, pleaded guilty to manslaughter and conspiracy, and was sentenced to the time he'd already served in jail awaiting trial, and was released. Luis Cabrera Santos, age 25, pleaded guilty to first-degree manslaughter, and was sentenced to 12 years. Daniel Fernandez, age 21, pleaded guilty to first-degree manslaughter, and was sentenced to 15 years, plus an additional 3 years due to an unrelated weapons case. Elvin Garcia, age 23, was sentenced to 25 years to life for first-degree murder, 25 years to life for second-degree murder, 8 1/3 to 25 years for second-degree conspiracy, and 15 years in prison, and 5 years post-release supervision for second-degree gang assault. The sentences will run concurrently. Antonio Rodriguez Hernandez Santiago, age 24, was sentenced to 25 years to life for first-degree murder, 25 years to life for second-degree murder, 8 1/3 to 25 years for second-degree conspiracy, and 15 years in prison, and 5 years post-release supervision for second-degree gang assault. The sentences will run concurrently. Janaiki Martinez Estrella, age 24, was sentenced to life without parole for first-degree murder, 25 years to life for second-degree murder, 8 1/3 to 25 years for second-degree conspiracy, and 15 years in prison, and 5 years post-release supervision for second-degree gang assault. The sentences will run concurrently. Jose Muñoz, age 21, was sentenced to 25 years to life for first-degree murder, 25 years to life for second-degree murder, 8 1/3 to 25 years for second-degree conspiracy, and 15 years in prison, and 5 years post-release supervision for second-degree gang assault. The sentences will run concurrently. Danilo Payamps Pacheco, age 21, pleaded guilty to first-degree manslaughter and was sentenced to 12 years. Gabriel Ramirez Concepcion, age 26, pleaded guilty to first-degree manslaughter and was sentenced to 12 years. Manuel Rivera, age 18, was sentenced to 23 years to life for first-degree murder, 23 years to life for second-degree murder, 5 to 15 years for second-degree conspiracy and 15 years in prison, and 5 years post-release supervision for second-degree gang assault. The sentences will run concurrently. Diego Suero, age 29, was found guilty of second-degree murder and was sentenced to 25 years to life. Jose Tavares, age 21, pleaded guilty to first-degree manslaughter and was sentenced to 15 years. Frederick then, age 20, was found guilty of second-degree murder and sentenced to 25 years to life. Ronald Urania, age 29, pleaded guilty to first-degree manslaughter and was sentenced to 15 years. Thank you for watching.